Welcome to this daily PBJ devotional. Read Judges 3 and Jeremiah 16 today. This devotional is about Judges 3 verses 7 through 11, but let's read all of Judges 3 first. These are the nations that the Lord left to test all the Israelites who had not known any of the wars in Canaan, if only to teach warfare to the subsequent generations of Israel, especially to those who had not known it formerly, the 5 rulers of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites, who lived in the mountains of Lebanon, from Mount Baal-Hermon to Lebo-Hamath. These nations were left to test the Israelites, to find out whether they would keep the commandments of the Lord, which he had given their fathers through Moses. Thus, the Israelites continued to live among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And they took the daughters of these people in marriage, gave their own daughters to their sons, and served their gods. So the Israelites did evil in the sight of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God, and served the Baals and the Ashtoreths. Then the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram-Naharaim, and the Israelites served him 8 years. But when the Israelites cried out to the Lord, he raised up Othniel, son of Caleb's younger brother Kenaz, as a deliverer to save them. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he became Israel's judge and went out to war. And the Lord delivered Cushan-Rishathaim, who prevailed against him. So the land had rest for 40 years, until Othniel, son of Kenaz, died. Once again the Israelites did evil in the sight of the Lord, so he gave Eglon, king of Moab, power over Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. After enlisting the Ammonites and Amalekites to join forces with him, Eglon attacked and defeated Israel, taking possession of the city of palms. The Israelites served Eglon, king of Moab, 18 years. And again they cried out to the Lord, and he raised up Ehud, son of Gera, a left-handed Benjamite, as their deliverer. So they sent him with tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Ehud had made for himself a double-edged sword, a cubit long. He strapped it to his right thigh under his cloak, and he brought the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab, who was an obese man. After Ehud had finished presenting the tribute, he ushered out those who had carried it. But upon reaching the idols near Gilgal, he himself turned back, and said, "I have a secret message for you, O king." "Silence," said the king, and all his attendants left him. Then Ehud approached him, while he was sitting alone in the coolness of his upper room. "I have a word from God for you," Ehud said, and the king rose from his seat. And Ehud reached with his left hand, pulled the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into Eglon's belly. Even the handle sank in after the blade, and Eglon's fat closed in over it, so that Ehud did not withdraw the sword from his belly, and Eglon's bowels emptied. Then Ehud went out through the porch, closing and locking the doors of the upper room behind him. After Ehud was gone, Eglon's servants came in and found the doors of the upper room locked. "He must be relieving himself in the cool room," they said. So they waited until they became worried and saw that he had still not opened the doors of the upper room. Then they took the key and opened the doors, and there was their lord lying dead on the floor. Ehud, however, had escaped while the servants waited. He passed by the idols and escaped to Sariah. On arriving in Sariah, he blew the ram's horn throughout the hill country of Ephraim. The Israelites came down with him from the hills, and he became their leader. "Follow me," he told them, "for the Lord has delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand." So they followed him down and seized the fords of the Jordan leading to Moab, and did not allow anyone to cross over. At that time they struck down about 10,000 Moabites, all robust and valiant men. Not one of them escaped. So Moab was subdued under the hand of Israel that day, and the land had rest for 80 years. After Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath, and he too saved Israel, striking down 600 Philistines with an ox goad. This is God's word. Today we encountered the very first judge by name of Israel in the book of Judges. And that man's name was Othniel. We read briefly about him as Israel's judge in verses 7 through 11 today. But that's not the first time we've encountered him. Verse 6 told us that he was son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. He was introduced to us in the same way in Judges chapter 1, verse 13. In that chapter, Caleb was looking for a man to capture a place called Kiriath Sepher. That's Judges chapter 1, verse 12. And Caleb offered his daughter Achsah as a wife to whomever took Kiriath Sepher. Our guy Othniel jumped at the chance, captured Kiriath Sepher, and received Achsah as his wife. Yes, that's right. He married his niece. Things were different back then. Still in Judges 1, Othniel wanted some more land from his uncle and father-in-law Caleb. So, like a man, he put his wife up to the task of asking her daddy for it. For reasons that I won't go into here, the NIV text says that Achsah wanted the land and told Othniel to ask Caleb for it. But that's probably wrong. It was the other way around, because Judges 1, 14, and 15 tell us that it was Achsah who did the asking. Confused? Let me recap. Othniel is the first judge of Israel in the book of Judges who is named. We don't find out he's a judge until chapter 3, but we meet him in chapter 1, where he conquered some Canaanites in order to win a woman named Achsah's hand in marriage. Once he married Achsah, he goaded her into asking her father for more land that had springs of water on it, according to Judges 1:15. Now, here's where I have some questions that the Bible doesn't directly answer. My first question is, was Othniel a man who just lacked the courage to ask for what he wanted? He certainly seemed to lack the courage to ask his father-in-law for the land that he wanted in chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. But when chapter 1, verses 12 and 13 tell us that Othniel jumped at the chance to beat those Kiriath Sephers once Achsah was the prize, I can't help but wonder if he wanted to marry her all along, but was just too shy to ask Uncle Caleb for her. Think about it. He wanted to marry a woman, but maybe was just too shy to ask her dad directly. Once her dad says she can marry the guy who attacks and defeats Kiriath Sepher, he moves immediately into action, beats the enemy, and wins the girl. Could he have made it easier on himself if he had just had the courage to ask for her hand in marriage? My second question is this. Did Caleb know that Othniel wanted to marry her, but was too shy to ask Caleb for it, and so he just made it easy for him by giving him a prize? It seems easier, to me at least, to just ask than to go to battle, but that's how Othniel rolled. Anyway, coming to today's passage, Judges 3, Othniel becomes Israel's judge, but only when the Spirit of the Lord came on him, so that he became Israel's judge and went to war. It took a special act of God's Spirit to get Othniel to do the right thing. Remember that God had already promised victory to Israel. All anyone had to do was believe the Lord's promise and attack. Ehud demonstrated that in our chapter today. That's chapter 3, verse 28, which we read also today. He didn't attack Eglon when the Spirit of the Lord came on him. He just did it knowing that the Lord said he would be with him. Now here's my point in all of this. Are you too shy, like Othniel may have been, to claim God's promise and act in faith? Does it take special circumstances like Caleb created for Othniel to get you to do what you want, even if you know it is within the Lord's moral will? Does God have to do dramatic work in your heart to get you to do something for him, something that you actually want to do but are just too shy to attempt without a push from God? I'm being a bit harsh on Othniel here, admittedly. But the truth is that I am Othniel. There have been too many times in my life where I was afraid to take action and waited for someone else to goad me or for some circumstance to happen for me. I'd like to help you avoid this. To give Othniel some credit here, at least he moved when the door opened for him. When Caleb made his offer, he didn't sit around and wonder if it was God's will. When God's Spirit moved him to go to war, he went to war. He might have needed a push now and then, but at least he kept moving once the push came. But would Othniel have had a better life and been a more effective leader if he had asked Caleb directly for his daughter? Oh yeah, and Caleb, throw in that extra land with the springs of water on it too that I want while you're at it, okay? Or, and I'm more certain about this, couldn't Israel have avoided 8 years of subjection to Aram Naharaim, as we saw in verse 8, if Othniel had just claimed God at his word and led Israel to fight back when their enemies oppressed them? How about you? Do you want something in life that you know is within God's moral will, at least, but you're too scared to ask for it? You're waiting for that girl to show some interest in you, or for that job to be offered to you instead of just stepping up and asking for it. What about a ministry need that you see and you could meet, but you're waiting for someone else to take the lead, or for God to kick you in the backside to get you started? Is that you? If something came to mind while you were listening to me describe this, and it is something you've already been thinking about for a while now, are you going to do anything about it today? Let me urge you to do that. Often at the end of these devotionals, I say, think about that today. Don't think about it today. Just do it if it's within the moral will of God and see what God does. And I'll see you next time. May God bless you. Hope you have a great day today. And I hope you go after the thing that you want if it's within God's moral will.